developing a new operating system in low cost one. Texas Instruments were not interested. And then these two guys came together and said, let's start our own. And Sunil is a Marwadi guy, but Lake, both of them are tech guys, both of them then started. They went to a friend of theirs and said, you have an office, you have engineers, we don't have any money, we don't have anything to start with other than our idea. We'll give you 2% of a company, will you give 10 engineers? We need 10 engineers, 10 computers, we'll give you 2% of my company. What is the value of the company at that point of time? What's the value of the company? Well, the company, just paper.
Few lakhs would be.
Based on what? Idea. We say that, okay, I can't write zero.
Correct.
I'll probably write 2 lakhs or 1 lakh.
That's
Right? So technically the value is zero. So they get 2% of the zero. And they went for a year. The friend said, look, I'm shutting this company down. So they came to NSR said. Sunil was very, very clever. We had already about 10 people then. And we were very keen that we didn't want to take anybody more than 6. So he came and told Kalyani Gandhi, no, just 2 of us will come. There are other people, but they'll be working in my friend's location. After they came in, you see which company are Mango. Mango guys are all over the place. By the time they left, Kalyani Gandhi was saying they'll probably take over her seat even. Because that the way in which they didn't show, they actually did not raise money because nobody in the VC industry thought you could come up with a global technology innovation based out of India. So they didn't raise any money. Amagi and Impulse was very lucky that NS Raghavan gave them $250,000 when they were trying to start. Right? So, strange thing, I don't know because of you guys or we guys, in India we only talk of dollars. Although the person who's giving is Indian, the person who's receiving is Indian, the company is located in India, we talk dollars because I think this is the outcome of the IT industry. But 250,000 is what they raised from NS Raghavan. Mango actually had no money, they raised every dollar that came in because they were solving customers' problems. They were solving little bits of problems and they were getting money from there and then put their money into the startup and then went to. So finally, they got acquired. Sunil doesn't say how much he got acquired for, but I'm sure it must be a large number. He says undisclosed, we're not supposed to disclose. So again, they started, Sunil has some entrepreneurial background because of Marwadi, but they started with absolutely no money whatsoever. So Just Books. You are looking at Just Books, right? Sundar. Sundar had no clue. No? He was one of the early employees of iFlex. He was 200th employee of iFlex or very early employee of iFlex. And then that got acquired by Oracle. He was in his mid-30s, he had a chauffeur-driven car, he had a house in Palm Meadows, he had this large team working for him. I keep telling him he has everything to be unhappy about. And then he said, let me do something more interesting. So father was retiring and he wanted to get a franchisee for Crossword. So he wrote to Crossword saying that we are moving to Whitefield. Can we take a franchisee of yours and put up a Crossword franchisee in Whitefield? Some smart MBA kid, hopefully not from IIMB, wrote back saying that we looked at the numbers, we don't think Whitefield is yet ready for a bookstore. So this guy said, I thought of setting up a bookstore. He said he just wanted to do some more exciting stuff. So he went and put up a library. Because he had a day job, and his father was from Coimbatore, and he would come once in a while. His library, all books had RFID. There was RFID readers out there. All your library cards would be RFID. So this was way back in 2007. It was already thought, more like 2009. We thought of RFID as a technology, not because of anything else other than the fact that he had a job. Because nobody wants to be at the library, he thought, let's set up a library which will run by itself. Right? So that's the reason why, and because he wanted to have Crossword, and he said, let's just make Lending Library like a bookstore. And he grew up 60 lakhs on his first library. I asked him, how could you grow 60 lakhs on your library? He said, a lot of people have their second apartment where nobody is in there. So how different is this? I said, good question. I don't know. Maybe he had 60 lakhs spare change in his pocket to set up a learning library. But now it's come down, it's 5 lakhs, 4 lakhs and all. But the fact is that when he started, people started coming up to saying that this is a very interesting concept, great, we want to become members because it looked like a bookstore, had RFID technologies, this little kiosk, could touch and issue books yourself. And somebody came up to him and said, okay, when are you starting in Jayanagar? The person who's giving is Indian, the person who's receiving is Indian, the company is located in India, we talk dollars because I think this is the outcome of the IT industry. But 250,000 is what they raised from NS Cargo. Mango actually had no money, they raised no, every dollar that came in because they were solving customers' problems. They were solving little bits of problems and they were getting money from there and then put their money into the startup and then went to. So finally, they got acquired. Sunil doesn't say how much they got acquired for, but I'm sure it must be a large number. He says undisclosed, we're not supposed to disclose. So again, they started, Sunil has some entrepreneurial background because of Marwadi, but they started with absolutely no money whatsoever. So Just Books. You are looking at Just Books, right? Sundar. Sundar had no clue. No? He was one of the early employees of iFlex. He was 200th employee of iFlex or very early employee of iFlex. And then that got acquired by Oracle. He was in his mid-30s, he had a chauffeur-driven car, he had a house in Palm Meadows, he had this large team working for him. I keep telling him he has everything to be unhappy about. And then he said, let me do something more interesting. So father was retiring and he wanted to get a franchisee for Crossword. So he wrote to Crossword saying that we are moving to Whitefield. Can we take a franchisee of yours and put up a Crossword franchisee in Whitefield? Some smart MBA kid, hopefully not from IMB, wrote back saying that we looked at the numbers, we don't think Whitefield is yet ready for a bookstore. So this guy said, I thought of setting up a bookstore. He said he just wanted to do some more exciting stuff. So he went and put up a library. Because he had a day job and his father was from Coimbatore and would come once in a while. This library, all books had RFID. There was RFID readers out there. All your library cards would be RFID. So this was way back in 2007. It was already thought, more like 2009. We thought of RFID as a technology, not because of anything else other than the fact that he had a job. Because nobody wants to be at the library, he thought, let's set up a library which will run by itself. Right? So that's the reason why, and because he wanted to have Crossword, and he said, let's just make lending library like a bookstore. And he grew up 60 lakhs on his first library. I asked him, how could you grow 60 lakhs on your library? He said, a lot of people have their second apartment where nobody is in there. So how different is this? I said, good question. I don't know. Maybe he had 60 lakhs spare change in his pocket to set up a learning library. But now it's come down, it's 5 lakhs, 4 lakhs and all. But the fact is that when he started, people started coming up to saying that this is a very interesting concept, great, we want to become members because it looked like a bookstore, had RFID technologies, this little kiosk, could touch and issue books yourself. And somebody came up to him and said, okay, when are you starting in Jayanagar? Starting in Jayanagar. I just started one because they said, when are you starting in Jayanagar? I have no idea. And then somebody came up and said, when are you starting in Malaysia? I don't know. Okay, if you don't know, can you give us a franchisee? Just give us typing franchisee. What is franchisee? How to do franchisee? And so that was when he met me at a conference. And he said, what does IMB do? Can you guys help me out? And I said, yeah, this is perfect because you are at the stage where you want to scale. So when he came into IMB, it was about 1 library. When he left, it was 26 libraries. He had no idea, he was like a total accidental entrepreneur. He had absolutely no idea whether this one man entrepreneur or not. But then it's going through a bit, he has not raised money. The scale was, most of it is his money and a few private investors were in there. Even now investors, formal investors believe that books are not VC-able. Right? So he has not raised money. But having said that, So if you thought, I didn't even start.
That's why I was
still on stories.
Yes.
Okay, but let me quickly give you the story and then we can start with this. Because so you're now getting a feeling, right? So entrepreneurs so the bolt can come from anywhere. Your path to entrepreneurship is different. It could be because of accident, it could be because of the fact that you want to put a dent in the universe, or the fact that you notice a change and then like Mango noticed a change and said we want to address that. Amagi said that I want to put a dent in the universe, $1 billion company, or this guy says that accidentally I have no idea what to do. Right?
So, Suresh, in fact, just kind of tying up when you were telling all these stories, right? Like 4 things just struck me from an HR point of view, which I thought, thing. One, I think the first one is that every single one of the stories you've been saying, a lot of times they started from their strengths.
Which, exactly, you are actually proposing Saras's.
Okay, you're going to go there. But first one for me, what was interesting is everybody focused on their strengths. Okay, we don't know what the world wants, but I know what I can do.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that is a part of entrepreneurial thinking. The second one that I really loved what you said was, and believe you me, I mean, I'm also sitting in for the first time on this story session. Now that one you did was not so technical. So the second one was taking the idea and expanding it. Yeah, every single one of your stories, whether it started with an accidental stuff or whether I decided to send off the PPTs, the moment I got something that allows me to build, I kind of take that idea and see how I can expand it till it actually reaches a dead one. The third one I realized was probably a constraint mindset. That there is a constraint and I'm going to operate with this constraint. Why? Because I think as HR professionals, all the time people are telling you how you will not get budgets.
Yes.
To me, that's the best place to be in. Because all the time you're told, oh, sorry, no money for this. Okay? Oh, sorry, that can't be done. And so, I personally think there are a lot of opportunities for us to be really entrepreneurial, primarily because everybody doesn't expect that from you.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And the last one, which I just loved, is the notion of accidental entrepreneurial thinking, and I was thinking that maybe that should get fostered in the 2 days that we are here today and tomorrow.
Exactly. As HR, how does accidents happen? Accidents happen when people meet each other and people talk to each other. And because accidents happen because you're saying, oh, you want something, I can do it for you. Different. What we live is we all live in silos. Even as an organization, it's a bunch of silos kind of put together. So the best way in which you can create entrepreneurship is by moving people across multiple projects, across multiple departments, because apparently I was reading a book in 3M. Anybody can be asked to join any group. You could be a geologist and they'll put you on IT. So what am I supposed to do? We don't know, you figure out. So suddenly what you are thinking, you're built on these geological ways of working, and you are in minerals and mines. So which is what 3M, right? Minnesota Minerals and Mines. That's what 3M is. What will I do in IT? I don't know, we'll figure out. So that is why exactly accidents happen, because you're looking ahead and saying that, no, but in our industry, this is not how it is done. So when you go back, you'll probably come up with the idea which nobody thought of in geology because you got it from IT. And IT guys will say that, how do we solve this? And the geology guys say that, in mines, when you are underneath, when there is a lot of pressure, this is how we deal with it. Right? So they break the silos by pushing people into multiple departments of R&D. Exactly. And that's how you create the serendipity. Accidents are about serendipity, meeting people. And Sunil, the reason why Qualcomm bought him was he was at a conference in Bombay, a conference where he didn't want it to be in. So he was at the periphery. So he didn't want to be in the center. And in the same conference, somebody was made to go there from Silicon Valley. That fellow also didn't want to be in the center. He thought, why am I in this stupid conference in Bombay? I wanted to do this, that and the other. So he was also in the periphery. So he and Sunil started talking to each other and he asked, what do you do? He said, I was startup based out of IIM Bangalore. And said, oh wow, so what do you do? He said, we develop operating system for low cost phones. He said, really? Yeah. I know a huge group in Qualcomm which is working on low cost phones. In fact, the guy who's sitting on stage right now is the head. So the minute that fellow came out of head, this Qualcomm guy immediately introduced him and said, like, hey Sean, you should meet this character. And Sunil started talking to him, and Sean said, do you have a demo? And this fellow had a demo, and he showed it. He said, do you think it will work on my chipset? He said, I see no reason why. That's how the conversation started. And he said, Sean was so surprised that these guys were at least a year ahead of his team in terms of the technology. With absolutely nobody there, right? So, because they were working on the strength, because they were working on. So, serendipity is very, very important. That's probably a great point, also. This is as HR people, you all should enable that exchange of ideas across multiple departments and perhaps influence upon your seniors that that's the only way you could create an entrepreneurial culture, by getting people to interact with multiple others. Yeah.
So one of the aspects I saw as you were talking about the stories is that there is no scare, or they're not scared about making mistakes.
Exactly. That's another thing in a large company. You want to be entrepreneurial, you will have to ensure failures. So the reason why Israel is the way it is, you say that failure is not seen. Okay, you failed, why don't you try again? The same thing with Marwadis. Apparently when you fail, everybody comes, sits in a closed room, nobody is recording, no phones are there, nobody is listening. They kill you in terms of like what you did, the mistakes you made, and what you should do next time around. Right? The failure is discussed in great detail. Everybody goes out and is allowed to start again. Right? So that failure is seen as a virtue in most entrepreneurial organizations, that you should be allowed to fail, which means you should have tried. As Vasant is saying, that these guys did something. Right? He wrote a mail, he spoke to somebody, so there was always some activity that was happening all the time. Right? So that trying is what will give you failure. We asked Amagi guys, how will you sell your idea about contextualized advertising on television? He said very simple. If you look at television, there are a lot of ads which are not sold. So how do you know? Whenever a TV channel is advertising its own show, that is a TV ad slot which is not sold. So look at it, sit on one day, look at the number of ad slots that are not sold on Sony, call up Sony manager and say that yesterday we saw that you have like 18 slots which are not sold. We have a solution to your problem. You say when you're cold calling, tell them you have a problem, and you say, yesterday I saw your TV channel, there were 18 slots which are not sold. At this rate, technically you're losing this kind of money, and we have a solution. So they said, come talk to us. And that's how they went ahead and started talking. Anyway, I think I'll jump on this and quickly get to the point. So this is just to say that it's not. So the thing you need to look at is, as Vasudev was saying, there is strength. But there are other things that you need to look at. The first thing is there a market for it? Right? From a doability and a feasibility point of view. Is it technically feasible? Like for instance, right? How about, is there a washing machine that also does ironing and folds the clothes? Currently you would want a product like that, but technically not feasible. The closest we have come to is wrinkle free. So you don't have to iron. You flip the problem and saying it's not a washing machine ironing of clothes, but washing machine which doesn't iron, or which irons, but we're looking at clothes that don't get wrinkled. So is it technically feasible? Is there a market feasibility? That's the first question we need to ask. And the second thing is, can I do it? So do I have the strength? As in, I'm a signal processing engineer. All of these guys, as I said, the point trader, work in terms of the strengths that they have. And the second thing is it worth doing? Is there money in it? This for a large company is probably the biggest problem. Because what happens is, if you're talking to Google, right? Google says, How large is the market? Is it greater than 100 million? Otherwise, you're not interested. But no idea is 100 million without it being $5. So a startup guy does everything because he doesn't know which one works. But in a large company, you will have to say that, is it $100 million? But if it's not $100 million, it's not worth it.
Because you come from a predetermined mindset of
Yes.
already my cost is this.
So this is what it's going to cost. So, but financial feasibility here, which means, are they paying customers? Like Just Books. Are they paying customers? Would they come and pay you money for a service that you are offering? And most importantly, do I want to do it? A lot of times we say that, you know what, I may not want to do it. So if you're looking at the opportunities which you want to do, like market, like is it feasible? Can I do it? Is there money to be made? And would I want to do it? Right? So this is one way of assessing kind of opportunities that are there. The second is to look at discontentment. How discontent people are with current products and services. Google example that we put. People were highly discontent with Excel, Alta Vista. They were throwing a lot of results, but I have to go to second page, third page, fourth page to get the information that I want. In Google, when was the last time you hit page 2? Very rarely. The first 3 is what you look at. Because Google is able to tell exactly what you want. By 4th, you don't even hit. Apparently, when Redbus was prime here, Redbus was number 1 when you Googled on bus tickets. They had 80% of the revenue. The second guy had less than 10%. So if you are number 1 in Google, you don't hit anything else below that. So which means that if you are addressing something on why did it happen, discontentment. People are uncomfortable going through 3rd, 4th. So look at discontentment. People are unhappy with what is available. And that, if there is unhappiness, then you have a chance of an idea. And the second thing is criticality. How critical is it? Because if it is highly critical and people are discontent, then you're likely to have very good space for thinking of ideas. If the discontentment is high and the criticality is low, it still is a great idea. But if you're looking at something which is low discontentment, although it's critical, it may not be successful. Right? Or this space. Again, when we are talking of discontentment, it is not for everybody in the world. So look at a bunch of people. When you are looking at, let's say, elderly, what is it that they're discontent with? What is criticality? You are looking at young mothers. What is discontentment? What is criticality? When you are looking at young college students, what is critical? What are they discontent with? So it's not the entire population. It is a specific need of that a bunch of people, collective. And you start to look at it saying that, okay, do these guys have a problem? And then I would like to address that problem and see, look at criticality and discontentment for that particular set of people. So your exploration is to say that which community or collective is here or at least here. This is a problem that I would like to address. Right? So you have good potential for success, highest potential for success, while criticality is high, the discontentment is pretty low. Like for instance, right, our keyboard. It's critical because very badly designed. We get carpal tunnel, we have a lot of repetitive strain injuries, but then nobody has redesigned our keyboard, right? Or there are people who redesign keyboards, but nobody wants them because why? Because when I was young, after 10th standard, I was made to go ride cycling, right? Brown, lazy dog or something like that, dumps over. So we had to go to Now I show off in front of my nephews, I do like that. And they show off with their ability to, one smartphone that they don't look at and then send. But whatever be the reason, if the discontentment is low, you're highly unlikely to be successful. So look for a bunch of people who are unhappy with something. I'm unhappy, I don't see to find this solution. Get those collected because that's where we're likely to find good.
I had a very thing just for the afternoon session, where we are going to work in much detail. The two frameworks that he actually presented, I think I have 3 questions for the afternoon workshop. The first one is basically vis-a-vis your stakeholders within your organization, to be able to ask this question: where is the highest discontentment, lowest discontentment, what is high critical, low critical as far as the HR department is concerned, across what are the stakeholder groups, okay? And then we will examine how do we actually identify the stakeholder groups, because we often assume it's management, okay? And yet if you look at all that Dave Ulrich has been talking about HR, is that we are supposed to be employee champions. Yeah. So in this thing, we also need to be able to be sure that what is the stakeholder community, and for each one of your organizations and as where you are, the stakeholder communities may be completely different. Okay. So in the afternoon, I think that's the first thing we'll have to work on. The second one that I was actually kind of wanting to look at is this whole question after that into the first matrix that you put on feasibility and value. And we'll also talk about what does this value mean, and interpret it in the context of entrepreneurial thinking for HR. So those are the 2 ideas. You have any comments around that?
No, I think that's quite, we're getting into workshopish mode
Yes.
in terms of,
Correct.
she's noticing that I am slugging on getting you guys to think about, because I don't know
That's
too
not
much
your
about
strength.
HR.
I mean, that's not your strength. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good to have a translator.
Yeah. We want to do a coffee break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you have something to finish and then.
No, it's good because we're going to start with
It's
a
a
new topic.
nice. Yes. Correct.
15 minutes.
Yes. 15 minutes sharp. Okay. Let's.
We're looking at opportunities, right? So I'll talk about what effectuation is in later. But when you start to understand what is a viable opportunity, you have opportunities. How does an opportunity become a viable opportunity? What's the difference between an opportunity and a viable opportunity?
And you can earn money out of it.
One that you can earn money out of becomes viable. What?
Customer need.
Customer need exists and is willing to pay for it. Good. They're paying, obviously his thing is subsumed that they're customers. But what we think is, idea could be anything plus you, which is, if you look at Sundar, he wrote a letter to Crossword, they said no, and this guy started. Sunil wanted to actually work for Texas Instruments and gave them a great idea, they said no, this is started. This guy said, I want to put a dent in the universe. So whatever be the idea is like anything that happens to you plus you. So opportunity is idea plus action. Because action that Vasanthi was talking about, do this, calling up somebody, meeting somebody, being at a different place. So that is what, any idea, there is no value in idea. Because ideas don't mean anything. Ideas are diamond. What is diamond does? Some people come and say, do you write NDAs? Do you sign NDAs? The other way around is, I'll give you 10 ideas, will you pay me 1 lakh? Because if ideas are valuable, I'll also give you ideas. You pay me for it. Nobody values ideas. Ideas don't mean anything until you start taking action. Right? So what is a viable action is whatever, right? Interactions, and you are trying to raise money, you are trying to develop a product, or trying to get somebody to come and work for you, or join you. So these are all actions that you are taking on your idea, because that is what gets you from an idea to an opportunity. So if you look at what is the difference between now, what is the difference between opportunity and a viable opportunity? It is very simple. Opportunity plus commitment. You will have to commit something. Have to commit time, have to commit money, have to commit effort. So there is no opportunity which is viable if you don't commit something to it. So you all have to commit. or whoever wants to be an entrepreneur will have to commit. So, and then that commitment will lead you to a whole lot of action, and then you start to make your idea possible, make your opportunity possible. Right? So that is, so this is basically in addition to how do you become an entrepreneur? Any idea is a venturable idea. Any idea is a venturable idea as long as you set aside time